The mop bucket hit a crack in the marble and 3 gallons of soapy water went everywhere. Ellie watched it spread in slow motion, a perfect, gleaming wave across a floor that probably cost more than her entire tuition. Her shoes were wet. Her jeans were wet. And standing in the doorway, still holding his keys, was the one person on this campus she had actively tried to remain invisible to. Liam Ashford didn't move. He just stood there, tailored coat draped over one arm, tie loosened like he'd been yanking at it. His gaze traveled from the spreading puddle at her feet, up the handle of the mop she was still gripping like a weapon, and finally to her face. Ellie's cheeks caught fire. "I can fix this," she heard herself say. 3 minutes. "You're new," he said. Not a question. Not angry either. Just flat. Like whatever energy he usually carried had been drained out hours ago and never replenished. Yes. First day. She resisted the urge to wring her hands. The agency said the house would be empty. They say a lot of things. He stepped around the puddle carefully and shrugged his coat onto a nearby chair. Up close, he looked nothing like the photos on campus billboards. Those showed a golden boy. Perfect jaw, perfect smile. Campus king. Billionaire. This version had shadows under his eyes. His collar was crooked. And he smelled like expensive cologne layered over something else, exhaustion. The particular kind that came from not sleeping for days. Ellie knew that exhaustion. She lived in it. "I'll finish in the East Wing," she said quickly. "I won't be in your way." "You're not." She froze. He was already walking past her, toward the sweeping staircase, but his steps slowed. He looked back at the puddle. At the mop. At her sneakers, the ones with duct tape across the toe she'd hoped no one in this tax bracket would notice. "The cleaning schedule says you're here Tuesdays and Thursdays." Ellie blinked. "Yes." "Good." Then he was gone, footsteps fading up the stairs, leaving her standing in a rapidly cooling puddle with her heart hammering. Good? What did that mean? She told herself it didn't matter. She wasn't here for him. She was here for the money enough to cover the spring semester shortfall and maybe, if she picked up extra shifts, actually eat more than ramen. She wasn't here to analyze campus royalty. She definitely wasn't here to notice how his hands shook when he dropped his keys. By 8 o'clock, she'd convinced herself he'd forgotten she existed. Then her phone buzzed. Asterisk kitchen light stays on. Leave the door unlocked. Asterisk Ellie stared at the screen. She should have just responded okay and moved on. Instead, she typed, "Who is this?" 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Asterisk you're in my house with a mop at 8 p.m. Take a guess, asterisk right. She left the kitchen light on. She left the door unlocked. She was halfway down the driveway when she realized her phone charger was still plugged in by the armchair in the living room, the one with the dented cushion, like someone sat there often. She debated just buying a new one. She couldn't afford a new one. The house was silent when she slipped back in. Dark except for that kitchen light and a faint glow from upstairs. She grabbed her charger from the cushion crease. That's when she heard it. A sound from upstairs. Not loud. Not words. Just air. A sharp, choked exhale, followed by something that might have been a voice if it had enough breath behind it. Ellie's hand tightened on the charger cord. Leave, she told herself. This isn't your business, another sound. This time clearer. A word, fractured at the edges. Couldn't, her feet moved before her brain could stop them. The stairs didn't creak. She was good at being quiet. She'd learned young that presence announced was presence that could be rejected. Better to move unseen. His bedroom door was open wider now. Lamplight painted a yellow rectangle across the hallway floor. She shouldn't look. She looked. Liam Ashford was sitting on the edge of his bed, back to the door, head in his hands. His shoulders were shaking. Not crying, something else. Something that looked like a man trying to hold himself together while his body actively fought against it. His phone was on the floor, screen cracked. His breathing was too fast, too shallow. Ellie knew that breathing. She'd woken up gasping like that, nights after her mother's funeral. Nights after the reality of her new life. Scholarship applications, second jobs, the slow erosion of everything familiar had crashed over her in the dark. She knocked softly on the doorframe. Liam went rigid. Don't. His voice was raw. Don't come in here. I'm not coming in. She kept her voice low, even. I just forgot my charger. He didn't turn around. His back was a wall of tension, each vertebra visible beneath his thin t-shirt. It's on the chair downstairs. I got it. Silence. His breathing still ragged, but slowing. Just slightly. I'm going to leave now, Ellie said quietly. And when I do, I'm going to forget I saw anything. That's what you want, right? A pause. Then, barely audible, yes. She stepped back. Her fingers found the door handle, began to pull it closed. Wait. She stopped. He still hadn't turned. But his hands had dropped from his face, hanging loose between his knees. Defeated. The cleaning schedule, he said. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Yes. What hours? Ellie frowned. 3 to 8. Another long pause. She almost thought he wasn't going to answer. You came back. It wasn't what she expected. Not a question about hours. Not a dismissal. Just that. A statement. Flat on the surface, but underneath, something she couldn't name. I forgot my charger, she said. No. His voice was different now. Rougher. Thursday. When you heard me, you came back to the door. You knocked. Ellie's chest tightened. He'd known. He'd been in the middle of whatever that was, barely breathing, and he'd still known she was there. I didn't want to leave you like that, she said. Silence. Then, so quiet she almost missed it, no one stays. For words. For words that landed in her chest like stones. She should say something. She should deflect, dismiss, pretend she didn't understand what he was really telling her. Instead, she heard herself say, I'm here now. Liam exhaled. Not a sigh, something deeper. Something that sounded like a man putting down a weight he'd been carrying alone. Tuesdays and Thursdays, he said. 3 to 8. Yes. Those hours are fine. He didn't say good this time. He said fine. But his voice caught on the word, held it like it mattered. Ellie pulled the door closed softly and walked down the stairs, through the foyer, past the now dry marble floor. Her heart was beating too fast. Her hands were shaking. She didn't look back. But she felt his presence anyway, heavy and electric, pressing against her spine all the way to the door. Tuesday arrived with gray skies and the particular dread of an exam she wasn't ready for. Ellie dragged herself through 2 classes, a 4-hour library shift, and the bus ride to the Ashford estate with her backpack cutting grooves into her shoulders. The house was quiet. She cleaned the kitchen, the living room, the East Wing bathrooms. She worked methodically, efficiently, the rhythm of it almost meditative. This was what she understood, tasks with clear beginnings and ends. She saved the West Wing for last. His wing. The hallway outside his bedroom was immaculate. No dust, no clutter. But the door was cracked open again, same as Thursday, and this time she heard nothing. Just silence. Heavy, waiting silence. She knocked. No response. She knocked again, harder. Mr. Ashford? I'm here for the weekly cleaning. Come in. The words scraped through the door, low and rough. Not a command. Something closer to permission. Ellie pushed the door open. The room was dark, curtains drawn against the gray afternoon. Liam was on the bed, fully dressed, lying on top of the covers like he'd collapsed there hours ago and hadn't moved since. His shirt was wrinkled. His hair was a mess. And his eyes, when they finally focused on her, held something that made her stomach drop. Relief. Raw, undisguised relief. You came, he said. Ellie gripped the doorframe. It's Tuesday. I know. I always come on Tuesday. I know. She didn't understand what was happening. Didn't understand why he was looking at her like she was oxygen, and he'd been holding his breath for days. You don't have to clean, he said. It's my job. Something flickered across his face. Disappointment? Fear? It was gone before she could name it. Right, he said quietly. Your job. He didn't ask her to leave. He didn't get up. He just lay there, staring at the ceiling while Ellie stood frozen in his doorway. She should go. She should grab her supplies and scrub the guest bathroom and pretend this conversation never happened. Instead, she heard herself say, "When did you last sleep?" His jaw tightened. "Sorry," she said quickly. That's not forget, I asked. Thursday. Her breath caught. Thursday, he repeated. After you left. I slept. After you left. Not before. Not during the night. After she'd stood in his doorway and said, I'm here now, and watched his breathing finally slow. That's 4 days ago, she said. Yeah, that's not sustainable. His laugh was hollow. Yeah, I'm aware. She should leave. She should absolutely leave. She stayed. And Liam Ashford closed his eyes. The silence stretched between them. Not comfortable, not hostile. Just present. Two people in a dark room, breathing the same air. Ellie leaned against the door frame and told herself she was just waiting to make sure he was okay. That it would be rude to move and wake him. She didn't think about why her chest felt warm. She didn't think about the way his face had softened, years of tension finally, temporarily released. She definitely didn't think about Thursday. But when his breathing evened out and his hand, draped loosely across his chest, twitched toward the empty space beside him, she caught herself counting the hours until she'd have an excuse to come back. 30 seconds after his breathing evened out, Ellie realized she had a problem. She was supposed to be cleaning. Instead, she was standing in a billionaire's bedroom doorway watching him sleep like some kind of creep. If he woke up and found her still here, he'd think she was either incompetent or unhinged. Neither option led to her keeping this job. She shifted her weight. The floorboard creaked. Liam's hand twitched again. His brow furrowed. His breathing stuttered, not waking, but not peaceful either. Searching. His fingers brushed the empty sheet beside him and stilled. Ellie stopped breathing. He wasn't reaching for her. He didn't even know she was still here. This was something else. Something unconscious. A body seeking what it had learned to expect. After you left. I slept. For days without sleep. Then she'd appeared in his doorway, said 8 words, and he'd crashed like a man who'd forgotten rest was possible. No one stays. Ellie pressed her back against the doorframe and tried to quiet her heartbeat. She stayed for 43 more minutes. She told herself it was because she needed to make sure he was really asleep, that he wouldn't wake up gasping again, that the nightmare or memory or whatever haunted him wouldn't drag him under while she was standing right there. She told herself a lot of things. At 5 minutes to 8, she slipped out of his room and closed the door without a sound. She gathered her supplies. She locked the house behind her. She rode the bus back to campus with her forehead pressed against the cold window and her reflection staring back at her, pale and confused. You don't look at me the way they do. She hadn't realized he'd noticed that. She hadn't realized he'd noticed anything about her at all. Wednesday, she caught herself checking her phone during chem lab. No messages. Obviously no messages. He had her number from the employment file, but there was no reason for him to use it. Thursday morning, she woke up at 5 a.m. and couldn't fall back asleep. She told herself it was the chem exam. The rent increase notice pinned to her dorm bulletin board. The financial aid email about a missing form that she definitely submitted, but the system claimed never arrived. She told herself it wasn't 3 o'clock she was waiting for. At 2:50, she was on the bus. At 3:07, she was letting herself into the Ashford estate with her key card and her mop and her heart slamming against her ribs. The house smelled different today. Coffee fresh. And something else, something warm, buttery. She followed the scent to the kitchen and stopped. Liam Ashford was standing at the stove. He was wearing sweatpants. Gray, soft-looking, faded at the hem. His t-shirt was wrinkled, his hair was still wet from a shower, and he was flipping a pancake with the focused intensity of a man defusing a bomb. Ellie blinked. The pancake landed half-folded, dripping batter onto the burner. Smoke curled up. Damn it. Liam grabbed the pan handle, winced, grabbed a towel, and finally turned around. He froze. Ellie froze. The smoke detector stayed mercifully silent. You're early, he said. You're cooking. He looked down at the mangled pancake, then back at her. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked almost embarrassed. I thought, he stopped. Started again. You work a double shift on Thursdays. The coffee shop. You mentioned it. She had mentioned it. Once. In passing, while vacuuming the living room, not even sure he was listening. "There's a campus bus at 4, she said. "I usually take that one. You take the 3 bus on Tuesdays." She stared at him. His jaw tightened. The employment file includes transportation details. For scheduling purposes. Right. Scheduling purposes. He scraped the failed pancake into the trash and rinsed the pan. His movements were efficient, practiced, the kind of motions that came from muscle memory, not skill. Someone had taught him this once. Someone had stood beside him at the stove and guided his hands. "There's more batter," he said. "If you want breakfast. Before you start cleaning." Ellie's throat closed. She should say no. She should grab her supplies and scrub the east wing and maintain the careful distance between employer and employee that kept situations like this from becoming complicated. "You don't have to," he added quickly. Too quickly. "It's just, you're here. And I made too much." Obviously. The pancake carcass in the trash suggested otherwise. "I don't know how to use the stove," Ellie heard herself say. "My dorm has a hot plate and a microwave that sparks if you run it too long." Liam opened a cabinet and pulled out a plate. Not fine china, just ceramic, slightly mismatched from the rest of his kitchen. He set it on the island. "Then I'll make them." He poured fresh batter into the pan. His hands were steady now. His shoulders were looser. He was standing in his own kitchen, making pancakes for a girl he'd met 6 days ago, and he looked more at ease than she'd ever seen him. Ellie sat down. She didn't ask why he'd checked her transportation details. She didn't ask why he'd remembered her double shift. She didn't ask why a man who could have anything delivered, anything prepared, anything done for him at any hour of the day or night had chosen to stand over a hot stove and ruin pancakes for a housekeeper who was 47 minutes early. She didn't ask. But when he slid the plate toward her, perfect golden circles, no mangled edges, their fingers brushed. Neither of them apologized. Neither of them pulled away. And Ellie, who had spent her entire life learning to need nothing from anyone, suddenly understood why the dented cushion in the living room faced the window. Because he'd been waiting. Not for something. For someone. The pancakes were the best thing Ellie had eaten in months. She didn't tell him that. She didn't tell him that her usual breakfast was a granola bar eaten over the sink while running late to class, or that she'd skipped dinner last night to stretch her meal points, or that the warm, buttery sweetness melting on her tongue felt less like food and more like an apology her body hadn't known it was owed. She just ate. Quietly. Quickly. The way she did everything, efficient, unobtrusive, ready to vanish at any moment. Liam leaned against the counter, nursing a coffee he hadn't touched. He wasn't watching her eat. He was watching her plate empty, tracking each bite like he was calculating something. "There's more," he said. Ellie's fork paused. "I know. You didn't take enough. I took plenty. You took 3. That's an appetizer." She looked up. His expression was neutral, but something in his voice, an edge, almost accusatory, made her set her fork down. "I'm not your guest," she said quietly. "I'm your employee. You don't have to feed me." Something flickered across his face. Too fast to read. "You're here," he said. "That's the only requirement." Ellie waited for him to clarify. He didn't. He just picked up her plate and carried it to the sink, dismissing the conversation with his back. She should have let it go. "The employment file," she said. "What else does it say?" His shoulders tightened almost imperceptibly. "Standard information. Name, contact, emergency contact. I don't have an emergency contact." Silence. She hadn't meant to say that. It just slipped out, raw and unguarded. She'd spent 2 years filling out forms with the word none in that field, training herself not to flinch at the implication. No parents. No guardians. No one to call if she stopped showing up. "My mother died 2 years ago," she said. "It's just me now." Liam turned. His face was carefully blank, but his hands, gripping the edge of the counter, were white-knuckled. "Just you," he repeated. "Yes." Something passed between them. Not pity, she would have seen that, would have recoiled from it. Something else. Recognition. "That must be lonely," he said quietly. Ellie's chest tightened. "Sometimes." He nodded once, short and sharp, like he was filing the information away. Then he picked up a dish towel and started drying the pan she hadn't seen him wash. "The guest bathroom needs restocking," he said. "Toilet paper, soap. Supplies are in the hallway closet." "Okay. I have meetings all afternoon. You'll have the house to yourself." "Okay." His hands moved faster on the pan. Too fast. Almost agitated. "The bedroom door will be closed." "That doesn't mean," he stopped. Started again. "It's not locked. If you need to clean in there. But I usually keep it closed when I'm not home." Ellie set her coffee cup down carefully. "You don't have to explain your house to me. I know. I'm just the help." His jaw tightened. "You're not." The words landed hard, sharp at the edges. He seemed to realize it at the same moment she did, the weight of them, the implication. He set down the dish towel with exaggerated care. "I have meetings," he repeated. "I'll be done by 8. "Good." He walked out of the kitchen without looking back. 30 seconds later, she heard the front door close. Ellie sat alone in the enormous, silent kitchen, staring at the clean pan drying on the rack. She'd come here to clean. She'd ended up being fed, questioned, and informed twice that she wasn't just the help. None of that was in her job description. None of that made sense. She should be grateful for the pancakes. She should be annoyed at the boundary crossing. Instead, she felt something else entirely. Something that sat heavy and warm in her chest, insisting on being acknowledged. That must be lonely. He hadn't said it like a question. He'd said it like a man who already knew the answer. Ellie cleaned the guest bathroom. Restocked the toilet paper, the little soaps wrapped in paper, the ridiculously expensive hand cream in a glass bottle. She vacuumed the living room, careful to avoid the dented cushion. She dusted surfaces that hadn't accumulated a single particle of dust. She did not open the closed bedroom door. But she paused in front of it. Just for a moment. Her hand hovered over the handle, not touching, close enough to feel the cool brass against her palm. She remembered his fingers brushing the empty sheet beside him. The way his brow had smoothed when she'd said, "I'm here now." She pulled her hand back and walked downstairs. At 6 o'clock, her phone buzzed. Meetings ran long. "Don't wait." Ellie stared at the message. She hadn't been waiting. She was cleaning. That was her job. She typed back, "I'm scheduled until 8. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "I know." She set the phone down. Picked it up again. "Do you want me to lock up?" "No. Stay." A pause. Then, "Please." Ellie's heart stuttered. She should have said no. She should have reminded him that her shift ended at 8, that she had an exam tomorrow, that there was absolutely no reason for her to remain in his house after her assigned tasks were complete. Instead, she walked to the living room and sat down on the dented cushion. The window faced the driveway. Through the glass, she watched the sky darken, the security lights flicker on one by one. She watched his car pull through the gate at 7:52. She watched him sit in the driver's seat for a full 3 minutes before he finally got out. His steps were slow on the pathway, slower through the foyer. When he reached the living room archway and saw her there, still seated on his cushion, he stopped. "You stayed," he said. His voice was rough. Not surprised, something else. Something that looked like a man who'd asked for something and hadn't quite believed he'd receive it. "The dining room baseboards need attention," Ellie said. "I thought I'd get a head start on next week." Liam didn't look at the baseboards. He didn't look away from her face. "Right," he said quietly. "The baseboards." Neither of them moved. His tie was loose again, pulled sideways like he'd been tugging at it during the drive. His hair was disheveled. His eyes, God, his eyes. So tired. So carefully guarded. Like he was standing at the edge of a cliff and didn't know if he wanted to jump or step back. "I should go," Ellie said. "Okay." She didn't stand up. Liam took one step into the room. Then another. He didn't sit, he just stood there, 3 feet away, close enough that she could smell his cologne, the coffee on his breath, something beneath both that was just him. "Can I ask you something?" he said. She nodded. "Why did you take this job?" It wasn't what she expected. "I needed the money." "I know that." Impatience flickered across his face. "But there are other houses. Other cleaning agencies. Why this one?" Ellie considered lying. Consider deflecting with something professional, neutral, safe. The posting said it was off campus, she said. Private residence. I thought it would be quiet. It is quiet. Yes. She paused. I didn't know it was yours until I arrived. Something shifted in his expression. Would you have taken it if you'd known? The question hung between them, heavy with unspoken context. Would you have chosen to enter my space, knowing who I am? Knowing what they say about me? No, Ellie said honestly. His face closed off. He stepped back. I would have been an idiot not to, she continued. The pay is triple the market rate. But I probably would have been too intimidated to apply. Liam's retreat stalled. I'm not, he stopped. Scrubbed a hand over his jaw. I don't expect you to be intimidated. I know. I don't want you to be. I know. He looked at her. Really looked. Not at her uniform, not at her duct-taped sneakers, not at the mop she wasn't holding. At her face. Her eyes. The space between them that kept shrinking even though neither of them was moving. You should go, he said. Before I ask you to stay. Ellie's breath caught. Good night, Mr. Ashford. Liam, he said. My name is Liam. She stood up slowly. Her legs felt unsteady. Her heart was a fist in her throat. Good night, Liam. She walked to the door. Her hand was on the handle when his voice stopped her. Tuesday. She turned. He was standing in the archway, silhouetted against the living room light. His posture was straight, controlled, but his hands were curled at his sides, and something in his face was raw, unguarded, terrified. You'll come back Tuesday, he said. Not a question. Yes. 3 o'clock. Yes. He nodded once. Short, sharp. Like he was filing the information away, confirming a variable he'd been afraid to trust. Tuesday, he repeated. Ellie opened the door and walked out into the cold night air. She didn't look back, but she felt his gaze on her spine all the way to the bus stop. Tuesday became the axis of her week. Ellie didn't plan it that way. She had classes, exams, shifts at the coffee shop. She had a life that existed entirely separate from the Ashford estate and its occupant. But somehow, without her permission, every moment between Thursday and Tuesday became a countdown. She caught herself watching the clock in chem lab, calculating hours. 47 until I see him again. 32. 12. She caught herself wondering what he was doing. If he was sleeping. If he was eating. If he was standing in his enormous, quiet kitchen making pancakes for one and trying not to look at the empty doorway. She caught herself caring. That was the dangerous part. Not the hours, she could survive hours. Not the proximity, she could survive proximity. But caring? Caring opened doors she'd spent 2 years learning to keep locked. Her mother had taught her that. Not with words, her mother had never been good with words. But Ellie had watched her care for a man who didn't care back. Watched her give and give and give until there was nothing left. Watched her die slowly, not from cancer but from the exhaustion of loving someone who only knew how to take. Don't be like me, her mother had whispered, near the end. Her fingers cold around Ellie's wrist. Don't let them knead you into pieces. Ellie had promised. She hadn't realized, until now, how easy that promise was to keep when no one needed her at all. The third Tuesday, Liam was waiting by the door. Not hovering, he was too controlled for that. He was sitting in the living room, laptop open, reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked up when she entered. His expression remained neutral, but his fingers stilled on the keyboard. You're early, he said. 3:03. That's early. Ellie set down her supplies. Would you prefer I wait outside until my scheduled start time? Something flickered across his face. No. She'd known he would say that. She'd known it before she asked. The guest towels need laundering, she said. I'll show you where the linen closet is. I know where it is. Right. He closed his laptop, removed his glasses, folded them carefully, precisely, like the motion required his full attention. You've been here 6 times. 7, counting today. His gaze snapped to hers. You counted. She hadn't meant to say that. Hadn't meant to reveal that she tracked his hours like a compass tracks north, that she'd memorized the cadence of his footsteps on the stairs, that she'd noticed the way he always left the kitchen light on even when he wasn't home. The employment file, she said. It's in my calendar. Right. His voice was flat, but his eyes were doing something she couldn't name. The employment file. He stood abruptly and walked toward the stairs. Linen closet is at the end of the hall. Towels are on the top shelf. Liam. He stopped. Didn't turn. Thank you, she said. For showing me. His shoulders dropped a fraction. Just enough to notice. You don't have to thank me, he said quietly. This is your job. You should know where everything is. I know. Then why? Because you didn't have to show me yourself. You could have told me to figure it out. You could have emailed instructions. You could have ignored me entirely. She paused. Most people do. Silence. Liam turned. His face was carefully composed, but his voice was rough. I'm not most people. I know. He looked at her for a long, aching moment. Then he walked up the stairs, and Ellie followed. The guest bathroom towels were Egyptian cotton, absurdly soft, worth more than her winter coat. Ellie folded them with careful precision, running her thumb along each crease. Liam was in his bedroom. Door open. She could see him sitting on the edge of his bed, laptop open again, glasses back on. He wasn't working, his fingers were motionless on the keyboard, his gaze fixed on something she couldn't see. She should finish the towels and move to the east wing. She should maintain the careful distance that kept her heart intact. She should remember her mother's fingers cold around her wrist and the promise she'd made. Instead, she knocked softly on his open door. Liam looked up. You don't have to knock, he said. It's your job to be in here. It's my job to clean, not to interrupt. You're not interrupting. He closed the laptop. Set it aside. His glasses followed, folded with that same careful precision. I have a question, he said. Ellie waited. The first night. When you heard me, he stopped. Started again. You said you'd forget what you saw. I did forget. That's not what I asked. She gripped the folded towel tighter. What did you ask? Liam stood. Walked to the doorway. Stopped 2 feet from her, close enough that she could see the faint shadows under his eyes, the slight roughness along his jaw where he'd missed a spot shaving. You said most people ignore you, he said quietly. I don't believe that. Ellie's chest tightened. Why not? Because you're not ignorable. His voice was low, careful. You're quiet. You're efficient. You make yourself small. But you're not, he stopped. Searched for a word. Invisible. Her breath caught. I noticed you, he said. The first day. Before the mop. Before any of it. You walked through the door and I noticed you. That's not possible. You weren't even home. My office camera feeds to my phone. The front door, the driveway, the foyer. A pause. You looked nervous. You kept touching your collar. Ellie remembered that morning. Standing in the foyer, waiting for someone to appear and tell her she was in the wrong place. Adjusting her uniform collar so it sat straight. Trying to breathe. You watched me, she said. Yes. For how long? Long enough. His voice dropped. Long enough to know I wanted you to come back. The towel slipped from her fingers. Neither of them reached for it. This is inappropriate, Ellie heard herself say. You're my employer. I know. People would. She couldn't finish the sentence. The rumors. The assumptions. The inevitable conclusion everyone would jump to. I know. Then why are you telling me this? Liam looked at her. Not at her uniform, not at her shoes, not at the space beside her head. At her. Direct, unflinching, terrified. Because I need you to know, he said. That I noticed you first. That I wasn't just, he exhaled hard. That this isn't convenience. You're not convenient, Ellie. You're the least convenient person I've ever met. Her name in his mouth. Not the cleaner. Not you. Ellie. How, she managed. How am I inconvenient? Because I can't pay you enough to make this appropriate. I can't transfer you to another house. I can't pretend I don't watch the clock on Tuesdays and Thursdays. His voice cracked. I can't sleep unless you're here. The words landed between them, heavy and raw. Ellie's vision blurred. She blinked rapidly, refused to let the tears fall. That's not fair, she whispered. I know. You can't just tell me that. You can't put that on me. I know. His hands curled at his sides. But I don't know how to stop needing you to be here. And I thought, he stopped. Swallowed. I thought you should know why. Silence. Ellie stood in his doorway, her clean folded towel on the floor, her heart beating so hard she could feel it in her throat. She should leave. She should walk out of this house and never come back. She should protect herself from the gravitational pull of a man who was already depending on her presence to survive the night. "Why me?" she asked. Liam's expression shifted. Opened. "Because you stayed." "That's not a reason. It's the only reason that matters." He took a breath. "Everyone leaves. My brother left. My parents, they try, but they don't understand. The people at school, they want something. My face, my name, my money. They don't want me." His voice dropped to barely audible. "You don't want anything from me." Ellie's throat closed. "You're wrong," she said. "I want this job. I want to pay my tuition. I want to graduate without starving. That's not wanting something from me. That's wanting something for yourself." He paused. There's a difference. She didn't know how to respond to that. Didn't know how to process the weight of his attention, his honesty, his absolute conviction that she was different from everyone else who had ever looked at him. "Tuesday," he said. "You'll come back Tuesday." It wasn't a question. "Yes," Ellie said. "Tuesday." He nodded once. Stepped back into his room. Picked up his laptop, his glasses, his careful composure. "The East Wing baseboards," he said. "You mentioned them last week. I'll get to them." "Good." She bent down and retrieved the fallen towel. Her fingers were shaking. Her heart was still pounding. But she folded the Egyptian cotton with precise, careful creases, and when she looked up, Liam was watching her with something that looked like hope. She didn't stay past 8 that night. But she didn't leave on time either. Thursday, she caught a glimpse of him on campus. It was accidental. She was crossing the quad, head down, coffee in hand, and suddenly there he was. Flanked by 2 guys in blazers and a girl with a designer handbag. Laughing at something one of them said. His posture loose, his smile easy. The campus king. The golden boy. Ellie stopped walking. This was the version of him everyone else saw. Effortless. Magnetic. Untouchable. He looked nothing like the man who couldn't sleep, who cooked mangled pancakes at dawn, who admitted his brother left him like it was a wound that hadn't stopped bleeding. He looked happy. He looked like he'd never needed anyone in his life. One of the blazer guys said something, and Liam laughed again, that easy, public laugh, and his gaze swept across the quad. Casual. Unfocused. Then it landed on her. His smile didn't falter. His posture didn't shift. But something in his eyes changed. Sharpened. Recognized. Ellie looked away first. She walked to the library with her heart in her throat and her coffee going cold in her hands. She found a corner corral and stared at her textbook without seeing a single word. "I can't sleep unless you're here." That man, the one in the quad, surrounded by admirers, didn't need anyone. Didn't need her. He had everything. He was everything. But she'd seen him with his head in his hands. She'd heard his voice fracture on the word stayed. She'd watched his fingers reach for empty space beside him. 2 versions of the same man. One of them was a lie. The question was, which one? Tuesday arrived with rain. Ellie rode the bus with water dripping from her hood, her sneakers soaked through despite the duct tape. She was 15 minutes early and didn't care. The house was dark. Not the physical darkness of unlit rooms, the emotional kind. The kind that pressed against the windows and seeped under doors. She felt it the moment she stepped inside. "Liam?" No response. She set down her supplies and walked through the foyer, the living room, the kitchen. Empty. The dented cushion was undisturbed. The coffee maker was cold. Her heart started to pound. She took the stairs 2 at a time. His bedroom door was closed. She knocked. No answer. She knocked again, harder. "Liam, I'm coming in." The door swung open. He was sitting on the floor, back against the bed, knees drawn up, head bowed. His hands were gripping his hair. His breathing was shallow, rapid, wrong. The cracked phone lay on the carpet beside him. Ellie dropped to her knees. "Liam, look at me." He didn't respond. Didn't move. His chest was rising and falling too fast, too shallow, his whole body vibrating with tension. She knew this. She'd been here before, on the other side of it. the spiral, the undertow. The moment when your own breath becomes the enemy. I need you to breathe with me, she said. Can you do that? A sound escaped him. Not a word. Something fractured. Okay, she said. That's okay. You don't have to talk. She sat beside him on the floor. Not touching. Just present. Close enough that he could feel her there, hear her breathing slow and steady. I'm here, she said. I'm not going anywhere. His hand moved. Not toward her, toward the space between them. His fingers spread against the carpet, palm up. Open. Waiting. Ellie looked at his hand. At the fine tremor running through his fingers. At the vulnerability of that gesture, more honest than any words he'd spoken. She placed her palm against his. He turned his hand over. Clutched hers like she was the only solid thing in a world that kept shifting beneath him. And slowly, breath by ragged breath, his breathing began to slow. They sat like that for a long time. His fingers intertwined with hers. Her thumb tracing slow circles across his knuckles. The rain beating against the windows. Finally, he spoke. It was 7 years ago today. His voice was raw. Empty. Like he'd been hollowed out from the inside. Ellie didn't ask what he meant. She already knew. My brother, he said. He died 7 years ago today. And I was driving. The confession hung in the air, heavy and jagged. Ellie's hand tightened around his. I didn't mean to tell you like this, he whispered. I didn't mean to tell you at all. Then don't, she said. Not right now. He looked at her. His eyes were red-rimmed, his face stripped of every mask he'd ever worn. He looked younger like this. Terrified. Hopeful in a way that broke her heart. You're still here, he said. I told you I would be. I know. His voice cracked. That's why he stopped. Swallowed. That's why I waited. Waited for what? For her to prove him wrong? For her to leave like everyone else? Or waited to believe that someone could stay? Ellie didn't ask. She just held his hand and listened to the rain and counted his breaths until they matched her own. Outside, the sky darkened. Inside, 2 people sat on the floor of a bedroom, holding onto each other like the world depended on it. And for the first time in 7 years, Liam Ashford didn't feel alone. The rain stopped sometime after 8. Ellie didn't notice. She was still on the floor, her back against Liam's bed frame, his hand limp and warm in hers. He'd fallen asleep 20 minutes ago, not the fragile, twitching rest she'd witnessed before, but something deeper. His breathing slow. His grip relaxed. She should move. Her shift ended 17 minutes ago. The bus came every half hour, and if she missed this one, she'd be waiting in the dark. She didn't move. His thumb twitched against her knuckle. Not awake, just searching. She pressed her palm more firmly against his, and he stilled. I can't sleep unless you're here. She believed him now. He woke at 8:40. She felt the exact moment consciousness returned, his fingers stiffened, his breathing changed. He didn't pull away, didn't open his eyes. Just lay there, absorbing the reality of her presence beside him. You stayed, he said. Hoarse. I stayed. Silence. I don't, he stopped. Started again. This isn't how I wanted, I know. He opened his eyes, turned his head on the carpet to look at her. His face was vulnerable in a way she'd never seen, guards down, walls crumbled, too exhausted to rebuild. 7 years, he said. I've never told anyone what I told you. I figured. Aren't you going to ask? Ellie considered the question. She'd spent the past 2 hours sitting beside him, holding his hand, listening to his breathing even out. She'd had plenty of time to think about the words he'd spoken. My brother died 7 years ago today. And I was driving. No, she said. Not tonight. His eyes searched her face. Why not? Because you don't owe me your worst memory just because I held your hand through a panic attack. She paused. And because you're not going anywhere. Neither am I. There's time. Something shifted in his expression. Not relief, something deeper. Something that looked like a man who'd been holding his breath for 7 years and finally been given permission to exhale. Time, he repeated. Yes. He closed his eyes. His grip on her hand tightened. Tuesday, he said. It's Tuesday now. No. Next Tuesday. A pause. And the one after that. Yes. And Thursday. Yes. His thumb traced across her knuckles. Once. Twice. Okay, he said quietly. Time. She missed the 8:40 bus. She took the 9:15 instead, standing at the rain-slick stop with her hood dripping and her hand still warm from his. Her phone battery was at 6%. Her chem textbook was getting wet through her backpack. She didn't care. There's time. She'd meant it when she said it. She wasn't sure when that had become true. Wednesday, she received a text at 11:13 p.m. Did you get home okay? Ellie stared at the screen. She was in bed, dorm room dark, roommate already asleep. Her thumb hovered over the keyboard. Yes. Bus was on time. 3 dots appeared. Good. She waited. Nothing else came. She typed, "Did you sleep?" Long pause. Then, yes. Another pause. Better than I have in weeks. Ellie set her phone face down on her chest and stared at the ceiling. Her heart was beating too fast. Her cheeks were warm. She was smiling and she didn't know when that had started. She picked up the phone. Good. Good night, Ellie. She read the message 3 times. His name in her mouth. Her name in his. Good night, Liam. Thursday, she was 12 minutes early. He was waiting in the kitchen. Not cooking this time, just standing by the counter, coffee cup in hand, watching the driveway through the window. He turned when she entered. You're early. So are you. He almost smiled. I live here. Convenient. The corner of his mouth twitched. It was the closest she'd seen to humor from him, and it transformed his face. Made him younger. Made him real. The East Wing baseboards are still pristine, she said. I'm starting to think you don't actually need a housekeeper. Something flickered across his face. I need a housekeeper. Just a housekeeper? The question hung between them. She hadn't planned to ask it. The words had slipped out before she could catch them, raw and honest and terrifying. Liam set down his coffee cup. No, he said quietly. Not just a housekeeper. Her heart stuttered. But I don't know what else to call you. His voice was careful, measured. I don't know what you want me to call you. Ellie's throat tightened. Ellie works. Ellie. He said it like he was tasting the word. Okay. She should grab her supplies. She should start her shift. She should do literally anything other than stand here, staring at a man who just admitted she was more than an employee without admitting what that more actually was. Did you eat breakfast? He asked. No. I have pancake batter. You always have pancake batter. He paused. Yes, I do. She didn't ask why. He didn't explain. He just turned to the stove, and she sat at the island, and the silence between them was different now. Not waiting. Not uncertain. Just comfortable. He slid a plate toward her. Perfect golden circles. No mangled edges. Thank you, she said. He nodded once. Picked up his coffee. Didn't drink it. Ellie ate her pancakes and tried not to think about how easy this was becoming. How natural. How dangerous. Friday, she caught herself smiling at her phone during chem lab. Her seamate, Maya, noticed. Maya noticed everything. It was why Ellie usually sat in the back corner, away from her sharp eyes and sharper questions. Okay, who is he? Ellie's smile evaporated. What? You've been staring at your screen for 10 minutes with that face. Maya leaned closer. That's not your, I'm calculating my remaining meal points face. That's your, I'm thinking about a boy face. I don't have a boy face. You definitely have a boy face. Maya's eyes narrowed. Wait. Is it the guy from the coffee shop? The one with the jawline? No. The econ TA? Everyone has a thing for the econ TA. No. Then who? Ellie locked her phone and turned it face down. No one. Maya's expression shifted from curious to concerned. That's your lying face. I'm not lying. You're not telling the truth, which is a different kind of lying. She paused. Is he bad news? Because if some guy is messing with you, he's not. Ellie's voice came out sharper than intended. He's not messing with me. He's just complicated. Maya studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly and turned back to her lab manual. Complicated I can work with, she said. Just be careful, okay? Guys who are complicated usually come with expiration dates. Ellie didn't respond. She was thinking about Liam's hand reaching for hers on the carpet. His voice saying, "I noticed you." His thumb tracing circles across her knuckles like she was something precious. She didn't think he had an expiration date. She was terrified that meant she did. Saturday, she worked a double shift at the coffee shop. Sunday, she studied for her economics final until her eyes blurred. Monday, she received a text at 9:17 p.m. Tomorrow is Tuesday. Ellie smiled at her phone. Yes. Tuesday. 3 o'clock. Yes. A pause. I made a reservation at a restaurant. For dinner. Ellie's heart stopped. I know it's inappropriate, he continued. I know you're my employee. I know this is probably a bad idea. But I don't know how else to ask if you'd like to have dinner with me. Not here. Somewhere neutral. Somewhere you can leave if you want to leave. She read the message 3 times. Liam. Yes. Are you asking me on a date? Long pause. Longer than any of his previous pauses. Yes. And you want to do this at a restaurant? That is typical, I'm told. She laughed. Actually laughed, alone in her dorm room, hand pressed over her mouth. He'd looked up dating etiquette. He'd researched where to take a girl he liked. The campus playboy, the man who could have anyone, who was photographed at parties with models and heiresses and socialites, had consulted Google on how to ask out his housekeeper. What time? 7. I work until 8 on Tuesdays. Another pause. I know. I looked at your schedule. Of course he did. Pick you up at 8:15? Ellie's thumb hovered. Her heart was pounding. This was a line. This was crossing every boundary she'd carefully maintained. This was the beginning of something she couldn't predict or control. Yes. She typed it before she could second-guess herself. Yes, 8:15. Good. A pause. Good night, Ellie. Good night, Liam. She set her phone down and stared at the ceiling. Her roommate was out. The dorm was quiet. Her reflection in the dark window stared back at her, wide-eyed and terrified and alive. She had nothing to wear. She didn't care. Tuesday arrived with butterflies. Ellie went to class. She went to the library. She worked her coffee shop shift without remembering a single order. She rode the bus to the Ashford estate with her dress in her backpack, borrowed from Maya, navy blue, simple, the nicest thing she'd worn since her mother's funeral. She changed in the guest bathroom. The woman in the mirror looked like a stranger. Hair down. Lip gloss she'd bought at the campus pharmacy. Dress that cost more than her weekly grocery budget and fit like it was made for her. She looked like someone who deserved to be asked to dinner. She looked like someone who might believe it. Ellie took a breath. Stepped out of the bathroom. Liam was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. He'd changed too. Dark jacket, white shirt, no tie. His hair was still slightly damp. His eyes found hers immediately and held. You look, he stopped. Started again. You look. It wasn't smooth. It wasn't polished. It was honest, and it made her cheeks flush. So do you, she said. He almost smiled. That's not how compliments work. I'm not very good at compliments. Neither am I. He paused. But I meant mine. She believed him. The restaurant was off campus, tucked between a bookstore and a bakery. Small. Quiet. The hostess recognized Liam immediately, which made Ellie's stomach clench, but she led them to a corner table without comment. Liam held her chair. He poured her water. He asked about her classes, her major, her plans after graduation. He listened to her answers like they mattered. Like she mattered. It was the strangest date of her life. Not because of the opulence. The restaurant was nice, but not obscene. Not because of the attention. He was attentive without being overwhelming. Not because of the power imbalance, though that hummed beneath every exchanged glance. It was strange because he was trying. This man who had everything. This man who could have anyone. He was sitting across from her, nervous and earnest, asking careful questions and waiting for her answers like he was afraid of saying the wrong thing. Can I ask you something? She said, halfway through dinner. Anything. Why me? He set down his fork. Considered the question. I told you, he said. Because you stayed. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. He paused. I spent 7 years being looked at. Photographed. Approached. Everyone who comes close wants something: money, connections, proximity to the Ashford name. They don't see me. They see what I can give them. Ellie waited. You walked into my house and saw a mess. You saw a puddle and a mop and a job that needed doing. You didn't want anything from me except permission to fix it. His voice dropped. And then you saw me falling apart and you didn't run. I almost did. But you didn't. He met her eyes. You stayed. And you kept staying. And somewhere in between Tuesday and Thursday, I stopped being able to imagine you leaving. Her heart was too loud in her ears. I don't know what this is, he said. I don't know what you want it to be. But I know I don't want to spend another 7 years pretending I don't need someone to stay. Ellie's eyes burned. I need you to understand something, she said. I can't be your emotional support system. I can't be the person you depend on to function. That's not fair to either of us. His face didn't close off. He didn't retreat. I know, he said. That's not what I'm asking. Then what are you asking? He was quiet for a long moment. I'm asking if you feel it too, he said. This thing between us. This pull. I'm asking if it's just me, or if you wake up on Thursday mornings already counting the hours until 3 o'clock. Ellie couldn't breathe. It's not just you, she whispered. His eyes closed. Just for a second. When they opened, something had shifted. Relief, yes, but also something deeper. Something that looked like hope. Okay, he said. Okay. They didn't touch. They didn't make promises. They just sat across from each other in a quiet restaurant, two people who had finally stopped pretending. She took the bus home that night. He'd offered to drive. She'd said no, needed the time, the distance, the cold air against her flushed cheeks. He'd walked her to the stop anyway. Stood beside her in the dark until the bus appeared. Tuesday, he said. Yes. 3 o'clock. Yes. The bus doors opened. She climbed aboard, found a seat by the window. He was still standing at the stop, hands in his pockets, watching her. The bus pulled away. She watched him until he disappeared from view. Her phone buzzed. I forgot to say goodnight. Ellie smiled. Good night, Liam. Good night, Ellie. Wednesday, she received a text at 6:14 a.m. I slept. She stared at the screen, groggy and confused. That's good? I slept without you here. Oh, that's really good, Liam. I used the breathing technique. The one you showed me. She didn't remember showing him a breathing technique. She remembered sitting beside him on the floor, counting her own breaths out loud, hoping he would follow. She hadn't realized he was listening. I'm proud of you, she typed. Long pause. No one's ever said that to me. Ellie's chest ached. Then they should have. Another pause. Thank you. You're welcome. She set her phone down and stared at the ceiling. Her roommate was still asleep. The dorm was quiet. Outside, the sky was turning gray with morning. She thought about Liam sleeping alone in his enormous house. His breathing steady. His hand reaching for empty space and finding none. She thought about him waking up and reaching for his phone. She thought about him reading her message. I'm proud of you. She'd meant it. Thursday, he was waiting by the door. Not pretending to work. Not hovering in the kitchen. Just standing in the foyer, arms loose at his sides, watching the driveway. You're early, she said. So are you. She set down her supplies. The guest bathroom towels, I don't care about the towels. Ellie's heart stuttered. I spent all week waiting for today, he said. And now you're here, and I don't want to pretend I need you to clean something. What do you need? He stepped closer. Not touching. Just reducing the distance between them. I need to know if Tuesday night was real, he said quietly. I need to know if you felt what I felt. Ellie's throat tightened. You know I did. Then why does it feel like you're already pulling away? Because she was. Because every moment she spent with him, every text message and shared silence and honest conversation brought her closer to the edge of something she couldn't survive falling off. Because I'm afraid, she said. Of what? Of being needed instead of wanted. Her voice cracked. Of being useful to you until you don't need me anymore. Of becoming someone you used to need. Liam's expression shifted. Opened. Ellie. His voice was soft. I don't need you to sleep. I don't need you to breathe. I don't need you to function. He paused. I want you here. There's a difference. Her eyes burned. I want to wake up on Tuesdays and know I'll see you, he continued. I want to make pancakes that aren't just an excuse to have you in my kitchen. I want to take you to dinner and hold your hand and find out what your coffee order is and memorize the way you take your eggs. His voice dropped. I want you. Not your labor. Not your presence. You. A tear escaped down her cheek. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. I don't know how to want something without needing it. I don't know the difference. Then we learned together. He reached out. Slowly. Giving her time to step back. Tuesday. Thursday. Every day in between. We learned together. She looked at his hand. Open. Waiting. The same gesture from the floor of his bedroom, except this time his palm wasn't desperate, it was patient. Certain. She placed her hand in his. Okay, she said. We learned together. His fingers closed around hers. And for the first time, standing in his foyer with her cleaning supplies abandoned by the door, Ellie didn't feel like an employee. She felt like someone choosing to stay. The rumors started 2 weeks later. Ellie heard them in the dining hall first. A table of girls she didn't know, whispering behind their hands. Ashford. The housekeeper. You know she works at his estate. She walked past without reacting. Kept her face neutral. Her heart was pounding, but her expression remained calm. Years of practice, making herself small, making herself invisible. It didn't work anymore. By third period, her phone had 3 messages from Maya demanding to know why her name was being dragged across campus. By lunch, she caught someone staring at her in the student union. By 4 o'clock, the whispers had a shape. Sleeping her way up. Gold digger. Do you think he pays her extra for the night shift? Ellie made it to the bus stop before she broke. She sat on the bench, hands shaking, vision blurred. She didn't cry, she couldn't, not here. Not where someone might see. But her chest was caving in, and her throat was closed, and all she could think was, this is what I was afraid of. This is why I shouldn't have stayed. Her phone buzzed. You're late. Liam. She stared at the message. 3 words. Not accusatory, concerned. He'd noticed her absence. He was waiting. I'm not coming today. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. What happened? She couldn't answer. Couldn't type the words. Couldn't make it real by speaking it aloud. Ellie. Please. Her thumb moved before she could stop it. People know. Know what? About us. About me working for you. They're saying. She stopped. Started again. It doesn't matter what they're saying. It matters to me. She pressed her palm against her eyes. They're saying I'm using you. That I'm only there for the money. That she couldn't type the rest. A pause. Longer than usual. Where are you? Bus stop. Campus. Stay there. Liam, no. Don't. I'm already in the car. She lowered her phone. Her hands were shaking. Her reflection in the bus shelter glass stared back at her, pale, hollow, the girl who'd finally let herself want something and immediately had it used against her. The car arrived 7 minutes later. Black. Expensive. Liam behind the wheel, leaning across to push open the passenger door. Get in. Ellie didn't move. People will see. Let them. Liam, let them see, he said. Let them talk. I don't care what they say about me. I won't let them do this to you. Her throat closed. I'm not ashamed of you, he said quietly. I'm not hiding you. If you want to keep this private, I'll respect that. But don't let their cruelty convince you that you're something to be hidden. Ellie stood frozen on the sidewalk. She thought about her mother. About the years of watching a man who never claimed her publicly, never defended her, never once said she's mine, and I won't let you hurt her. She thought about Liam, sitting in his car with the door open, willing to let the whole campus see. She got in. He didn't ask where she wanted to go. He just drove away from campus, away from the whispers, away from everything that had been pressing down on her chest. The city blurred past the windows. The silence between them wasn't heavy. It was relief. He pulled into the driveway of his estate and cut the engine. I'm sorry, she said. I should have come. I shouldn't have let them. Don't. His voice was gentle. Don't apologize for being hurt. She pressed her palms against her eyes. I knew this would happen. I knew people would assume the worst. I knew, and I stayed anyway. Because you wanted to. Because I couldn't leave. Her voice broke. Because somewhere between the pancakes and the panic attacks and you telling me I'm not ignorable, I stopped being able to imagine my week without Tuesday in it. Silence. Liam reached across the console and took her hand. Then don't leave, he said quietly. Not because you need me. Not because I need you. Just don't leave. Stay because you want to. Stay because this is where you're supposed to be. Ellie looked at him. At his careful composure. At the fear beneath it, barely hidden. Are you asking me to stay? She whispered. Yes. Or are you asking me to prove that I want to? He hesitated. I don't know. She understood. She understood because she felt it too, the terror of wanting something so badly you couldn't distinguish it from need. The fear that your own heart was lying to you. I'm not leaving, she said. Not today. Not Tuesday. Not because of what they say. His grip on her hand tightened. But I need you to hear me, she continued. I can't be a reason for staying in this world. I can't be the only thing keeping you upright. That's too much weight for one person to carry. I know. And I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll try. She met his eyes. Not for me. For yourself. Promise me you'll find someone to talk to. A professional. Someone who can help you carry what you've been carrying alone. His face shifted. Not anger, something closer to recognition. Like she'd named a fear he'd been too afraid to speak aloud. I don't know if I can, he said. Then try. That's all I'm asking. Silence stretched between them. Okay, he said quietly. I'll try. Ellie exhaled. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath. Okay, she said. Then I'll stay. He started therapy the following week. She didn't ask for details. He didn't offer them. But she noticed the books appearing on his nightstand, not business texts, not thrillers. Books about grief. About trauma. About learning to forgive yourself for surviving. She noticed he didn't flinch at the word brother anymore. She noticed he slept more. Ate better. Smiled, small, tentative, but real. She noticed herself falling deeper. It was in the way he remembered her coffee order. The way he'd text her photos of his failed cooking experiments with captions like this was supposed to be edible. The way he'd taken her to dinner 4 times now, each restaurant different, each conversation easier than the last. It was in the way he looked at her. Like she wasn't a solution to his problems. Like she was just her. She was in love with him. She hadn't meant to be. Hadn't planned it, hadn't encouraged it, hadn't even admitted it to herself until the word rose up one Tuesday afternoon, unbidden and undeniable. Love. She set down her dusting cloth and stared at the wall. Oh. The full truth came on a Thursday. Not dramatically. Not during a crisis or confession. Just quietly while they were sitting on his living room floor, backs against the couch, studying in comfortable silence. His name was Caleb, Liam said. Ellie looked up from her textbook. He was 4 years older. Smarter. Better at everything. Liam's voice was careful, measured, like he'd rehearsed this. Everyone loved him. Our parents, our teachers, every girl he ever met. He was the sun and I was just orbiting. Ellie closed her book. He was supposed to take over the company. He was supposed to get married, have kids, carry on the Ashford legacy. I was just the backup plan. A pause. I was 17. She waited. We were driving home from a party. His girlfriend had just broken up with him. He was upset, not drunk, just distracted. He asked me to drive so he could text her. Liam's voice dropped. I was so proud. He trusted me with his car. His expensive, ridiculous car that I'd never been allowed to touch. His hands were shaking. There was a storm. Rain. I took a turn too fast and the car hydroplaned. He stopped. Started again. I walked away with a broken wrist. He didn't walk away at all. The silence stretched. It was an accident, Ellie said quietly. I was driving. Accidents have drivers. That doesn't make them murder. He's dead because I was behind the wheel. He's dead because of rain and physics and a turn taken at the wrong speed. She paused. Would you blame him if the roles were reversed? Liam's jaw tightened. That's different. How? Because he stopped. Swallowed. Because he was the one everyone loved. Because his life mattered more than mine. Ellie set her textbook aside. That's not true, she said. And you know it. He didn't respond. 7 years, she continued. 7 years you've been punishing yourself for surviving. 7 years you've been trying to earn forgiveness from a brother who wouldn't want you to carry this. You don't know what he would want. No, she agreed. But I know what you deserve. And it's not this. Liam looked at her. His face was raw, open, terrified. What do I deserve? He whispered. She reached out and took his hand. To heal, she said. To forgive yourself. To stop treating your existence as a debt you will never finish paying. His breath caught. And me? His voice cracked. Do I deserve you? Ellie's chest ached. That's not for me to decide, she said. You have to believe you deserve good things. Not because someone gives them to you. Because you're worthy of receiving them. I don't know how to believe that. Then learn. She squeezed his hand. You're learning everything else. He was quiet for a long time. My therapist says guilt is just grief wearing armor, he said finally. She says I'm not responsible for his death. I'm just responsible for how I carry the memory of him. That sounds wise. She is. A pause. I hated her for the first 3 sessions. But you kept going. Yes. He met her eyes. Because you asked me to. That's not why. He hesitated. No. Not entirely. But it's why I made the appointment. A pause. I don't know if I would have done it alone. Ellie nodded slowly. Thank you, he said. For not letting me stay broken. You were never broken. She paused. Just healing very slowly. His mouth curved, not quite a smile, but close. Tuesday, he said. Thursday, she corrected. Both. He squeezed her hand. Every day in between. Yes, she said. Every day in between. The semester ended. Ellie passed her exams, not with honors, but with passing grades and a GPA that wouldn't jeopardize her scholarship. She picked up extra shifts at the coffee shop. She watched her bank account grow, slowly, painfully, enough for next semester's textbooks and maybe, if she was careful, a new pair of sneakers. Liam continued therapy. Continued sleeping better. Continued existing in her life as something she couldn't categorize and didn't want to label. They weren't dating. Not officially. But he picked her up from the bus stop when it rained. She saved him a seat at the campus cafe during his rare visits. His texts had become the background radiation of her days, constant and comforting. Her mother's voice whispered sometimes, "Don't let them knead you into pieces." But Liam wasn't taking pieces. He wasn't taking anything. He was just present. Solid. Real. And slowly, almost without noticing, Ellie stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. The scholarship announcement came in July. Ellie opened the email in her dorm room, alone, already bracing for rejection. She'd applied to 12 programs. Been denied by 12 programs. Her GPA was good but not exceptional, her extracurriculars were non-existent, and her essay about working 3 jobs while maintaining full-time enrollment was apparently more pathetic than impressive. She scanned the email. Formatted like a rejection. Standard greeting, standard language, "We are pleased to inform you." She stopped reading. Then started again. "We are pleased to inform you that you have been selected as a recipient of the Ashford Family Scholarship, covering full tuition and fees for the remainder of your undergraduate education." Ellie's hands went numb. The Ashford Family Scholarship. She read the sentence 4 times. 5. The words didn't change. Her phone rang. She picked it up without looking at the screen. "Did you get the email?" Liam's voice. Careful. Nervous. "Did I?" She couldn't finish. "Did you do this?" "No. Liam, I didn't." A pause. "My parents did. They've been looking for a candidate for this scholarship for months. I didn't even know they were considering you until they asked for my opinion." "Your opinion?" "Yes." Another pause. "I told them you were the most qualified person I knew. That you worked harder than anyone I'd ever met. That if they didn't give it to you, they'd be passing up the best candidate they'd ever find." Ellie pressed her palm against her eyes. "I told them the truth," he said quietly. "That's all." "You should have told me. I wanted it to be a surprise." A pause. "Are you surprised?" She laughed. It came out wet and broken. "Yes," she said. "I'm surprised." Good surprise or bad surprise? She thought about it. Thought about the weight that had just been lifted from her shoulders. Thought about all the nights she'd lain awake, calculating and recalculating, wondering if she'd have to drop out before graduation. Good, she whispered. Really, really good. She heard him exhale. Good, he said. I was hoping you'd say that. She met his parents the following week. Not intentionally. They'd shown up at the estate unannounced, and she'd been in the living room, dusting the dented cushion, when the door opened and two strangers walked in. Margaret Ashford was elegant, silver-haired, dressed in understated cashmere. Thomas Ashford was quieter, watchful, his son's eyes in an older face. They didn't look surprised to see her. You must be Ellie, Margaret said. Liam's told us so much about you. Ellie's face burned. I'm just the housekeeper. No. Margaret's voice was gentle but firm. You're not. Thomas glanced toward the stairs. Is he here? He's in his office. I can get him. No, let him work. Margaret's gaze returned to Ellie, soft and assessing. We wanted to meet you. To thank you. Ellie's throat tightened. For what? For staying. Margaret paused. We've spent 7 years watching our son disappear. Piece by piece. We tried everything: therapy, doctors, medication. Nothing reached him. Her eyes glistened. Then he met you, and suddenly he was sleeping again. Eating again. Living again. I didn't. Ellie stopped. I just cleaned his house. No, Thomas said quietly. You saw him. There's a difference. Ellie didn't know what to say. We're not trying to make you uncomfortable, Margaret continued. We just wanted you to know that we see you. What you've done for our son, what you continue to do, we don't take it for granted. He did it himself, Ellie said. The therapy, the healing. I just stayed. Margaret smiled. It transformed her face, softened the elegant lines into something warm and achingly familiar. That's exactly what I mean, she said. You stayed. Liam found her in the guest bathroom 20 minutes later, sitting on the edge of the tub, staring at nothing. Hey. He crouched in front of her. My parents didn't run you off, did they? No. Her voice was strange. They were nice. They're good people. A pause. Overbearing sometimes. But good. Ellie looked at him. At his careful composure. At the concern beneath it. They said you were disappearing, she said. Before I met you. His jaw tightened. They said nothing reached you. Nothing helped. She paused. Is that true? Liam was quiet for a long moment. Yes, he said finally. I was just going through the motions. Existing. Not living. And now? He met her eyes. Now I want things again. What kind of things? Tomorrow. Next week. Next year. His voice dropped. You. Ellie's heart stuttered. I know you're not my cure, he said. I know healing isn't something another person can do for you. But you're the reason I wanted to try. He paused. You're the reason I want to be someone worth staying for. You were always worth staying for, she whispered. His expression shifted. Opened. Tuesday, he said. Yes. 3 o'clock. Yes. He reached out and took her hand. Not desperate. Not dependent. Just certain. I don't need you to survive anymore, he said quietly. But I still want you here. Ellie looked at their intertwined fingers. At the man crouched in front of her, steady and present and healing. Good, she said. Because I want to stay. The fall semester began. Ellie attended classes without the weight of tuition crushing her chest. She worked fewer shifts, slept more, smiled easier. Maya noticed. Maya had been noticing for months. Okay, spill, Maya demanded, cornering her in the library. You've been glowing for weeks. What changed? Ellie hesitated. Then, carefully, I met someone. The complicated guy? The same complicated guy. A pause. He's less complicated now. Maya studied her face. You're in love with him. It wasn't a question. Yes, Ellie said. I am. And does he know? He knows. Ellie paused. I haven't said it. Not yet. Why not? Because the words felt too big. Too permanent. Because once she said them, she couldn't unsay them. Because she was still afraid, not of him, not of them, but of herself. Of trusting her own heart after years of keeping it locked away. I'll say it when it's right, she said. When I'm sure he's ready to hear it. Maya nodded slowly. And when will that be? Ellie thought about Liam. About his steady progress, his tentative smiles, his hand reaching for hers in quiet moments. About the man he was becoming, not healed, not fixed, but healing. Actively, intentionally, for himself. When he believes he deserves it, she said. That moment came in October. Not dramatically. Not with grand gestures or sweeping declarations. Just quietly in his kitchen, while he was failing at omelets and she was laughing at his technique. I love you, she said. His hands stilled on the pan. The omelet burned. Neither of them noticed. What did you say? His voice was barely audible. I love you. She met his eyes. I'm not saying it because you need to hear it. I'm saying it because it's true. Because you've earned the right to be loved, and I'm tired of pretending I don't feel it. Liam stared at her. You don't have to say it back, she continued. I don't need you to. I just needed you to know. He set down the pan. I've loved you since the mop incident, he said. I just didn't know what to call it. Her breath caught. Everyone I've ever loved has left, he continued. Caleb left. My parents, they stayed, but they were grieving, and I couldn't reach them. I thought love was just another word for loss. Something you survive, not something you choose. He stepped closer. Then you walked into my house with your duct-taped shoes and your mop bucket, and you looked at me like I was just a person. His voice cracked. And I thought, this is what I've been waiting for. Someone who stays. Someone who sees me. Someone who loves me not because I need it, but because I'm worthy of it. Ellie's eyes burned. I love you, he said. Not because you healed me. Not because you stayed. Because you're you. Because you're brave and stubborn and you refuse to let me hide from myself. He paused. Because you make me want to be the man you already believe I am. She reached up and touched his face. Tuesday, she whispered. Every day, he said. Every day in between. She kissed him. It was soft. Tentative. The first brush of lips, gentle and questioning. His hand came up to cradle her jaw, thumb tracing her cheekbone like she was something precious. This isn't just need, he murmured against her mouth. This is want. This is choice. This is me choosing you. And me choosing you, she whispered. They stood in his kitchen, the burnt omelet cooling on the stove, and held each other like they'd finally found solid ground. The scholarship sponsorship announcement came in December. Ellie didn't know about it until she received the official letter, not an email, but a physical document, thick paper embossed with the Ashford Family Foundation seal. It informed her that her employment had been restructured, her housekeeping position replaced with a sponsored research assistantship that had no duties, no hours, and no connection to Liam's personal residence. She stared at the letter. Then she picked up her phone. What is this? His response came immediately. You said you didn't want to be my employee. This isn't a real job. It's a real scholarship. With real funding. The research component is optional. Liam, you needed the imbalance to change. I changed it. She pressed her palm against her eyes. Your parents approved this? They suggested it. They said you deserve to be supported, not employed. A pause. They're right. Ellie read the letter again. Full tuition. Stipend for living expenses. A named scholarship that would follow her through graduation and into her career. This is too much. This is exactly enough. You just aren't used to accepting help. She laughed. It came out wet. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to. You already gave me everything. Her fingers trembled over the keyboard. Tuesday? Yes. I love you. I love you too. She set down her phone and looked at her reflection in the dark window. The girl staring back at her looked different now. Softer. Braver. No longer waiting to be abandoned. She was still the girl no one noticed. But someone saw her. And that someone had just made sure she never had to choose between survival and love again. Graduation arrived in May. Ellie walked across the stage in a borrowed cap and gown, her name echoing through the auditorium, her heart full to bursting. Maya cheered from the audience. Margaret and Thomas Ashford sat in the third row, applauding warmly. And Liam. Liam stood at the back, hands in his pockets, watching her with something that looked like pride. She found him afterward, pressed against the crowd, still in her gown. "You came," she said. "Of course I came." He reached out and straightened her tassel. "I wouldn't miss this." "I didn't think you'd," she stopped. Started again. "It's a long drive from the city. I took the morning off." "You never take mornings off." "You're worth taking mornings off for." Her eyes burned. "Stop being perfect." "I'm not perfect." He smiled. "I'm just in love with you." She kissed him there, in front of everyone, in her borrowed cap and gown. She didn't care who saw. Didn't care what they said. She was done being invisible. She was done being afraid. She was done pretending that wanting someone was the same as needing them. "I love you," she said. "Not because you need me. Not because I'm useful to you. Because you're you." His smile softened. "I know," he said. "That's why it works." The house on Ashford Estate didn't need a housekeeper anymore. But Ellie came anyway. Not on Tuesdays and Thursdays, on random days, at random hours, whenever she wanted to be near him. She sat on the dented cushion and watched him work. She burned pancakes in his kitchen and made him eat them anyway. She fell asleep on his couch and woke to find a blanket tucked around her and him watching from the armchair, soft and present and here. Sometimes she thought about the girl who'd walked through that door with a mop bucket and duct-taped sneakers. The girl who'd promised herself she wouldn't need anyone. The girl who'd been so afraid of being used that she'd almost missed the chance to be loved. That girl was still here. But she wasn't afraid anymore. Tuesday, Liam said one evening, stretched out beside her on the couch. "It's Thursday." "I know." He laced his fingers through hers. "I'd just like saying it." She smiled. "We don't need Tuesday anymore." "No," he agreed. "We don't." They lay in comfortable silence, watching the shadows lengthen across the ceiling. "But I still look forward to it," he said quietly. "So do I." He turned his head to look at her. "Is this what you thought it would be?" he asked. "When you took the job?" Ellie considered the question. "I didn't think anything," she said. "I just needed to survive." "And now?" She looked at him. At the man who'd been a stranger, then an employer, then a burden, then a friend. At the man who was now none of those things and all of them, and something entirely new. "Now I'm not just surviving," she said. "I'm living." His grip on her hand tightened. "Good," he said quietly. "Me too." Outside, the evening darkened. Inside, two people lay side by side, breathing the same air, holding the same space. Not needing. Choosing. Every Tuesday. Every Thursday. Every day in between. The scholarship letter sat on Ellie's desk for 3 weeks before she let herself believe it was real. Every morning she woke up expecting an email saying there'd been a mistake. Every evening she checked her student account, waiting for the funds to vanish as mysteriously as they'd appeared. They never did. The tuition balance remained zero. The stipend deposits arrived on schedule. And still, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was going to wake up and find it had all been a dream. Maya called it imposter syndrome. Ellie called it self-preservation. She'd learned early that good things didn't last. That kindness usually came with invisible strings. That if something seemed too good to be true, it was only a matter of time before reality corrected the error. Liam was the exception she hadn't anticipated. "You're doing it again," he said one Saturday afternoon. They were at his kitchen island, him with his laptop, her with a textbook she wasn't reading. His voice was quiet, not accusatory. "Doing what?" "Waiting for the other shoe to drop." Ellie's pen stilled. "I don't, you do." He closed his laptop. "You've been waiting for me to disappoint you since the night I asked you to dinner. Every time something good happens, you brace yourself for the crash." She wanted to deny it. The words sat in her throat, heavy and defensive. "Is it working?" he asked. "Bracing yourself?" "No," she admitted. "It's just exhausting." "Then stop. It's not that simple." "I know." His voice softened. "But you can practice. Every time you catch yourself waiting for the end, remind yourself, this isn't borrowed time. This is your life. You're allowed to live it." Ellie looked at him. At his steady gaze, his patient silence. At the man who had spent 7 years punishing himself for surviving and was now learning, slowly, to stop. "When did you get so wise?" she asked. "Therapist." He almost smiled. "Also, I've been practicing." "Practicing what?" not waiting for the crash. He paused. Turns out, when you stop anticipating disaster, you have more energy for the present moment. And how's the present moment treating you? His gaze held hers. Pretty good, actually. The bullying didn't stop after graduation. Ellie had assumed it would, that once she was no longer on campus, no longer visible, the whispers would find other targets. She'd underestimated the staying power of a good scandal. It started on social media. An anonymous account popped up in late May, dedicated entirely to exposing the Ashford Family Scholarship as a cover for Liam Ashford's charity girlfriend. The posts were careful, no direct accusations, just insinuation. Side-by-side photos of Ellie and Liam at campus events. Screenshots of her old financial aid documents, somehow obtained and shared without consent. Comment sections filled with variations of gold digger and do you think he pays by the hour? Ellie found out from Maya, who found out from a group chat she wasn't supposed to be in. Don't look at it, Maya said, gripping her phone like she wanted to throw it into traffic. It's garbage. It's jealous people with too much time and not enough therapy. Ellie looked at it anyway. The comments were worse than she'd imagined. Not just about her, about Liam too. About his brother's death, dredged up and dissected. About his erratic behavior in the years after. About whether the Ashford heir was mentally stable enough to run a multinational corporation. Like father, like son, one comment read. Thomas Ashford buried his grief in work. Liam buries his in broke scholarship girls. Ellie set down her phone. Her hands were shaking. She didn't go to the estate that week. She told herself she needed space. Told herself she was protecting him from more scandal. Told herself that if she just stayed quiet, stayed invisible, the attention would eventually fade. Liam texted. She replied with short answers and excuse after excuse. Exam studying. Migraine. Busy with summer internship applications. He didn't push. He never pushed. But on the fourth day of her absence, he sent a message she couldn't deflect. I'm not going to stop asking. But I need to know if you want me to. Ellie stared at the screen. I don't want you to stop, she typed. Then let me see you. It's not that simple. It is, actually. You're avoiding me. I need to know why. She pressed her palms against her eyes. Her reflection in the dark phone screen looked hollow, exhausted. Because they're using you to hurt me. And they're using me to hurt you. And I don't know how to fight back without making everything worse. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Come over. Liam, please. I'm not going to try to fix this for you. I just need to see that you're okay. She wasn't okay. She hadn't been okay since she'd read those comments. But she was tired of hiding, tired of shrinking, tired of making herself small to avoid being a target. I'll be there in an hour. He was waiting on the front steps. Not inside. Not hovering by the door. Just sitting on the cold stone, elbows on his knees, watching the driveway. He stood when the bus dropped her off, and his face did something she couldn't name. Relief. Fear. Love. All of it tangled together. You look terrible, she said. So do you. She almost laughed. Almost cried. Settled for standing in front of him, close enough to touch, hands shoved deep in her jacket pockets. I read the comments, he said. Then you know why I've been hiding. I know why you think you've been hiding. His voice was careful. I know you're trying to protect me from more scrutiny. I know you think removing yourself from the situation will make it stop. Won't it? No. He paused. It never does. They don't need you to be visible to talk about you. They just need you to exist. Ellie's throat tightened. I spent years trying to make myself invisible, he continued. Stopped going to events. Stopped seeing friends. Stopped leaving the house except for class and mandatory appearances. And they still talked. They still speculated. They still dug up Caleb's death and used it as evidence that I was broken. How did you survive it? I didn't. His voice dropped. I just existed. Waiting for it to stop. Waiting for them to find someone else to tear apart. Silence stretched between them. Then you walked into my house, he said quietly, and you looked at me like I was a person, not a headline. And I realized I'd spent 7 years hiding from people who were never going to stop looking. The only way out was to stop caring what they saw. Ellie's eyes burned. I don't know how to do that, she whispered. Neither did I. He reached out slowly and took her hand. But I had someone who stayed while I figured it out. Someone who didn't run when I was at my worst. His thumb traced across her knuckles. Someone who believed I was worth the effort before I believed it myself. She looked at their intertwined fingers. I'm not running, she said. I just needed to breathe. I know. He paused. But next time, breathe near me. It's quieter with two people. The laugh escaped her before she could stop it, wet and shaky and real. It's not quiet anywhere near you, she said. You're literally the most visible person on campus. Retired from visibility. I graduated, remember. You'll always be visible. It's your face. I could grow a beard. Please don't. His mouth curved that small, tentative smile she'd come to treasure. Okay, no beard. They stood on the front steps of his house, holding hands in the fading afternoon light. No solutions. No strategies. Just presence. It was enough. The account escalated. By mid-June, the anonymous posts had been picked up by a campus gossip blog. By July, a local news outlet ran a piece on wealth, privilege, and the ethics of legacy admissions, using the Ashford Scholarship as a case study. They didn't name Ellie directly, but the implication was clear. Margaret Ashford called her on a Tuesday morning. Are you sitting down? She asked. Ellie's heart dropped. What happened? Nothing new. I just wanted to warn you, Thomas and I are issuing a statement. About the scholarship. About Liam. About the insinuations regarding Caleb's death. Ellie gripped the phone tighter. You don't have to do that. Yes, we do. Margaret's voice was calm, steady. We've spent 7 years protecting our privacy. Protecting Liam. Letting the rumors circulate because engaging with them felt like validating them. She paused. That was a mistake. Ellie waited. Caleb's death was an accident, Margaret continued. A tragic, senseless accident. Our son was not responsible. We should have said that publicly years ago. We should have defended him instead of letting him carry the weight of everyone's speculation. He never asked you to. No. He never asks for anything. A pause. That's why we need to give it without being asked. The statement came out the following afternoon. It was brief, dignified, and unequivocal. The Ashford Family Scholarship was awarded based on merit, not personal connection. Liam Ashford's relationship with the recipient was private and not subject to public referendum. And Caleb Ashford's death had been ruled an accident by every investigating authority, a ruling his family had accepted and grieved and never doubted. Ellie read it 3 times. Then she picked up her phone and called Liam. Did you know they were going to do this? She asked. Yes. His voice was quiet. They asked my permission first. And you said yes. I said I'd been hiding behind their silence for 7 years. That it hadn't protected me. That it had just let other people tell my story for me. A pause. I said I was done letting other people tell my story. Ellie pressed her palm against her chest. How do you feel? She asked. Terrified. His voice cracked. Also lighter. Like I've been carrying something I didn't realize I was allowed to put down. That's called grief, she said quietly. My mother's therapist told her that grief is just love with nowhere to go. When you stop punishing yourself, the love has somewhere to land. Silence. Your mother's therapist, he said. Yes. She sounds like she was wise. She was. Ellie paused. So was my mother. She just didn't always believe it. Liam was quiet for a long moment. Thank you, he said finally. For telling me that. Thank your mom. She's the one who made me think of it. I'll thank both of you. A pause. Tuesday. It's Wednesday. I know. His voice softened. I just wanted to say it. The backlash to the Ashford statement was immediate. Some outlets praised the family's transparency. Others accused them of orchestrating a cover-up. The anonymous account went dormant for exactly 48 hours, then returned with renewed vitriol, this time targeting Liam directly. Ellie watched it unfold from the safety of his living room, curled into the dented cushion with her phone clutched in her hands. You should stop reading, Liam said. He was sitting across from her, laptop open, jaw tight. So should you. I'm not reading. I'm compiling evidence for the legal team. Same thing. His mouth twitched. One of us is getting paid for this. And one of us is sitting on a couch that costs more than my education. Point taken. They sat in silence, both pretending to work. The late afternoon light slanted through the windows. Outside, the security gates remained closed. Liam had increased privacy protocols after the first doxing attempt. "Can I ask you something?" Ellie said. "Anything. Why do you stay? You could leave. Buy an estate in another country, change your name, disappear completely." She paused. "Why do you stay here, where everyone knows your face and your history and your worst moments?" Liam closed his laptop. "Because running didn't work," he said. "I tried it. After Caleb died, I begged my parents to send me to boarding school in Switzerland. Then a gap year in Southeast Asia. Then early admission to a university on the opposite coast." He paused. "Everywhere I went, I was still the same person. Still carrying the same weight. Still waking up every morning wishing I hadn't." Ellie waited. "At some point, I realized the problem wasn't where I was. It was who I was." His voice dropped. "I didn't need to escape my life. I needed to stop wishing I didn't have one." Her chest ached. "Is that why you came back?" she asked. "After graduation?" "Partly." He met her eyes. "Also, you were here." "Liam, I'm not saying you're the reason I stay. That's too much weight for any person to carry." He paused. "But you're the reason I don't want to leave anymore." She crossed the room without thinking. Sat beside him on the couch. Reached for his hand. "That's not too much weight," she said quietly. "That's just love." His breath caught. "I love you," she continued. "Not because you stay. Not because you need me. Because you're here. Because you keep choosing to be here. Because every day you wake up and decide that existing is worth the effort." He turned his hand over, interlaced their fingers. "I love you too," he said. "And I'm not going anywhere." The anonymous account finally shut down in August. Not because of the legal threats. Not because of the Ashford statement. Not because the posts stopped getting engagement. They were still being shared, still being screenshotted, still fueling comment sections across multiple platforms. It shut down because the person running it got caught. A sophomore named Jordan Pierce. Business major. Former intern at a competitor of Ashford Industries. His family had lost a contract bid to Thomas Ashford's company 6 years ago, and Jordan had apparently spent his entire college career waiting for an opportunity to retaliate. Ellie read the campus security report in disbelief. He did all this because his dad lost a business deal? Liam shrugged. Some people hold grudges longer than others. That's insane. That's wealthy families with too much time and not enough perspective. He paused. "My therapist says resentment is just grief you haven't finished processing." His father probably passed that grief down like an heirloom. Ellie stared at him. "Did your therapist actually say that, or are you just becoming accidentally profound?" He almost smiled. "Both." The news spread quickly. Jordan Pierce was expelled, his accounts deleted, his family's statement of apology released, and immediately criticized as inadequate. The comment sections pivoted from attacking Ellie and Liam to attacking the Pierces. New targets. New outrage. Same cycle. Ellie watched it burn out and felt nothing. No vindication. No relief. Just exhaustion. "It's over," she said. "Just like that. Just like that." Liam paused. "Doesn't feel the way you thought it would, does it?" "No." She pressed her palms against her eyes. "I spent months waiting for this. For vindication. For everyone to know I wasn't lying or scheming or taking advantage." She dropped her hands. "Now they know, and I still feel like the girl with duct tape on her shoes." "That girl never went anywhere," Liam said quietly. "She just got better shoes." She laughed. "It came out wet and broken." "You're ridiculous." "I'm serious." He reached out and took her hand. "You're still the same person who walked into my house with a mop bucket and refused to leave. You just have less debt now. I also have you." "Yes." His thumb traced across her knuckles. "You also have me." September brought the start of a new academic year. Ellie walked through campus and noticed the differences immediately. The whispers had changed, not disappeared, but shifted. Fewer people stared. Fewer people speculated. Jordan Pierce's expulsion had made the scholarship story national news, and the prevailing narrative had shifted from gold digger to harassment victim. She hated that phrase even more than the first one. Victim implied something had been taken from her. It implied powerlessness. It implied that her worth was defined by what others had tried to do to her. She wasn't a victim. She was a girl who'd worked 3 jobs to pay for an education she'd earned. Who'd fallen in love with a man who saw her clearly. Who'd survived scrutiny and speculation and outright cruelty without becoming cruel herself. That wasn't victimhood. That was resilience. "You're doing it again," Maya said. They were at the campus cafe, Maya's usual spot, Ellie's usual order. Liam had finally memorized it, and she pretended to be annoyed every time he got it right. Doing what? Staring into the middle distance like you're solving the world's problems. Maya stirred her latte. "What are you actually thinking about?" Ellie hesitated. "Whether I should go back to work." "Work? You have a full-ride scholarship and a billionaire boyfriend. Why would you work?" "Because I don't want to be the girl who stopped working." She paused. "Because I don't want to be defined by what other people give me." Maya studied her face. "This isn't about money." "No. This is about identity." "Yes." Maya nodded slowly. "Then find work that means something to you. Not just work that pays." She paused. "You're not the same person who took that housekeeping job. You don't have to keep proving you haven't changed." Ellie considered that. "What if I don't know who I am without the struggle?" she admitted. "What if the struggle was the only thing that made me interesting?" Maya's expression softened. "Elle, you were interesting before the struggle. The struggle just made you better at hiding it." She told Liam about the conversation that evening. They were on his couch, her usual spot, the dented cushion that had molded itself to her shape over the past year. He was reading or pretending to read. His hand rested on her ankle, thumb absently tracing circles. "I think I want to teach," she said. His hand stilled. "Teach what?" "English. Literature. The classes I loved most in high school." She paused. "There's this program. It places recent graduates in underfunded schools. 2-year commitment. Housing stipend. Not much pay, but you don't need the pay." "No." She met his eyes. "I need the purpose." Liam set down his book. "You're asking my opinion," he said slowly. "Or telling me your plan?" "Telling you my plan." She paused. "But also asking if you think I'm crazy." "I think you're the least crazy person I've ever met." He paused. "I also think you're terrified of admitting that you want something that isn't survival." Her breath caught. "You spent years fighting to stay afloat," he continued. "Now you're not fighting anymore. Now you're just living. And living means choosing what you want, not just what you need." "And what do you want?" she asked. "Right now?" His thumb resumed its slow circles. "I want you to stop waiting for my permission to want things. That's not what it is." His voice was gentle. "You've spent this entire conversation bracing for me to be disappointed. To tell you that teaching doesn't pay enough, or that moving to another city would be inconvenient, or that I didn't sign up for a long-distance relationship." She couldn't deny it. "Here's what I actually think," he said. "I think you'd be an incredible teacher. I think those kids would be lucky to have you. I think 2 years is nothing compared to the rest of our lives." He paused. "And I think you should stop asking me for permission to become the person you're meant to be." Ellie's eyes burned. "I'm not asking for permission," she whispered. "I'm asking if you'll still be here when I figure out who that person is." Liam's expression softened. "Tuesday," he said. "Thursday. Every day in between." He squeezed her ankle. "I'll be here." She applied to the teaching program in October. The application required essays, references, a recorded teaching demonstration. She spent weeks preparing, revising, second-guessing every word. Liam read 3 drafts of her personal statement and only suggested 2 changes. Maya filmed her demonstration and only laughed once. The acceptance email arrived on a Thursday. Ellie opened it alone, in her dorm room, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The first line read, "Congratulations." She stopped reading. Grabbed her phone. Called Liam. "I got in," she said. A beat of silence. Then, "You got in." "The teaching program. In Cambridge." "I got in." Another beat. Longer this time. "Cambridge," he said. "Massachusetts." Yes, 2,947 miles away. She hadn't realized he knew the exact distance. Yes. Silence stretched. She could hear him breathing, measuring his response. Liam, if this is too much, too much. His voice cracked. Ellie, this isn't too much. This is everything you've been working toward. This is the future you've been fighting for. He paused. I'm not going to be the person who stands in the way of that. Her throat closed. But I'm also not going to pretend I'm okay with you being 3,000 miles away, he continued. So you need to give me a minute to figure out how to be happy for you without being sad for myself. She waited. I'm happy for you, he said finally. I'm so proud of you I can barely breathe. His voice dropped. I'm also terrified that you're going to leave and realize you don't need me anymore. Liam, I know it's not rational. I know you're not leaving me. I know distance doesn't change what we are. He exhaled shakily. But I spent 7 years watching everyone I loved leave. My brain doesn't know how to process someone choosing to stay. Ellie pressed her palm against her chest. I'm not leaving you, she said. I'm going to graduate school. There's a difference. I know. And you're not being left. You're being asked to adapt. She paused. I need you to tell me honestly if that's something you can do. Silence. Yes, he said quietly. I can adapt. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll still need me. His voice was raw. Not the way I needed you before, not desperately, not like I couldn't function without you. Just need me. Want me. Choose me. Every day, from 2,000 miles away, choose me. Ellie closed her eyes. I promise, she whispered. Every day. 2,000 miles. I'll choose you. The move to Cambridge happened in January. Ellie packed her entire life into 2 suitcases and a cardboard box of books. Her dorm room looked small, empty, the walls stripped of the posters she'd never bothered to hang. Maya helped her carry boxes to the curb and cried when the Uber arrived. You better visit, Maya said, gripping her hands. And you better call. And you better not fall in love with some East Coast intellectual who uses words like discourse, unironically. I'm already in love with someone. Then make sure he visits too. Maya wiped her eyes. Actually, make sure he visits separately so I get to see you twice. Ellie laughed. Deal. The flight was 6 hours. She spent most of it staring out the window, watching the country scroll by beneath her, thinking about how strange it was to leave the only home she'd known. Not her mother's house, that had been sold to pay medical bills. Not the dorms, those had always been temporary. Not Liam's estate, that was his home, not hers. She was leaving a place that had never quite belonged to her. She was arriving somewhere that didn't know her at all. Her phone buzzed during descent. Wheels down. Almost, she typed back. 20 minutes. Good. A pause. I miss you already. She smiled at the screen. I haven't even left yet. You left 3 weeks ago. The day you accepted the offer. Her chest tightened. I'm still here, she typed. 2,000 miles. Still here. I know. I'm practicing. Practicing what? Not needing you to survive. Just wanting you to be happy. She read the message 3 times. The cabin lights dimmed. The landing gear engaged. Outside the window, Boston sprawled beneath her, cold and glittering and unfamiliar. I am happy, she typed. Because of you. Not despite the distance. Because I know you're waiting on the other side of it. His response came immediately. Always. Cambridge was harder than she expected. Not the coursework, she'd always been good at school. Not the isolation, she'd spent years teaching herself to be alone. Not the cold, she'd survived worse winters with worse coats. What was hard was the silence. Not the absence of sound. The absence of him. His voice in her phone was a poor substitute for his presence in a room. His texts couldn't replicate the weight of his hand on hers. His video call showed her his face, but not the way his shoulders relaxed when she walked through the door. She hadn't realized how much she'd depended on his proximity. Not needed it, not the desperate, consuming need of those first weeks. But depended on it. Relied on it. Built her days around the quiet certainty that he was near. Now he was far. Now she was learning what it meant to want someone without being able to reach out and touch them. I don't know how to do this, she admitted during a late-night call. It was past midnight in Cambridge, barely 9 in California. He was still at his office, tie loosened, shadows under his eyes. Do what? Be in love with someone who isn't here. She paused. Be in love with someone I can't see every day. Liam was quiet for a long moment. Remember when you first started working for me? He said finally. And I asked you to stay late that first Tuesday? Of course. I didn't ask you to stay because I needed the house cleaned. His voice was careful. I asked you to stay because I needed you in the room. Just present. Breathing the same air. Ellie waited. It wasn't about conversation. It wasn't about touch. It was just about proximity. He paused. I don't need that anymore. But I still want it. And I think that's the difference between what we were then and what we are now. What we are now, she repeated. Two people who choose each other. Even when it's hard. Even when it's inconvenient. Even when there's 3,000 miles and 3 time zones between them. His voice dropped. That's not need. That's love. Ellie pressed her palm against her chest. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. A pause. Tuesday. It's Thursday. I know. I just wanted to say it. She visited in March. Spring break. 5 days of him waiting at the airport, her suitcase wheels rattling across the terminal floor, his arms around her before she could even set down her bag. You're here, he said against her hair. I'm here. You're really here. 5 whole days. She pulled back just enough to see his face. Try not to burn down the kitchen while I'm here. His smile was wobbly. No promises. His house hadn't changed. Same foyer, same marble floor, same dented cushion in the living room. But something felt different, lighter somehow. Warmer. He'd added plants to the windowsills and photographs to the walls. His family, his parents, a candid shot of Caleb that made her chest ache. I redecorated, he said, watching her look. I can see that. My therapist said it was important to make the space my own. Not just the space I inherited. He paused. She said living in a museum was keeping me frozen in the past. She sounds smart. She's very smart. He hesitated. I also added something for you. In the guest room. Ellie raised an eyebrow. You have 4 guest rooms. The one you use. He shifted his weight. The one at the end of the hall. She hadn't realized he'd noticed which room she preferred. Hadn't realized he'd cataloged her habits, her preferences, the small ways she'd made his house feel like hers. She walked down the hall and pushed open the door. The room was different now. New curtains. New bedding. A desk by the window, positioned to catch the afternoon light. And on the wall, framed and hung with obvious care, her teaching certificate. Her acceptance letter. A photograph of her and Maya at graduation, both of them laughing, caps tossed in the air. Ellie couldn't breathe. It's not much, Liam said from behind her. Just, I wanted you to have a space here. A real space. Not just a guest room you sometimes use. She turned. This is the nicest thing anyone has ever done for me, she whispered. His face did something complicated. Relief, hope, fear, all of it, tangled together. It's just a room. It's not just a room. She stepped toward him. It's you saying I belong here. Not as an employee. Not as a guest. As someone who gets to come home. His eyes glistened. You do, he said. You always have. I just didn't know how to tell you. She kissed him. Soft at first, then deeper. His hands came up to frame her face, thumbs tracing her cheekbones like he was memorizing the shape of her. Tuesday, he murmured against her mouth. It's Friday. I don't care. She laughed. He smiled. They stood in the doorway of a room that was finally, truly hers, and let the weight of 5 months apart dissolve into nothing. The 5 days passed too quickly. They cooked together, disastrously, joyfully. He'd improved since her last visit. She'd somehow gotten worse. They burned rice and undercooked chicken and ate takeout on the dented cushion, her legs draped over his lap. They talked about everything and nothing. His therapy sessions. Her coursework. His parents' upcoming anniversary. The stray cat that had taken up residence in her Cambridge apartment building. I named him Tuesday, she admitted. Liam's hand stilled on her ankle. You named a cat after our day. He's gray and grumpy, and he only shows up when he wants something. She paused. Reminded me of someone. He made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a protest. I'm not gray. Not yet. And I'm not grumpy. You're very grumpy. I'm reserved. There's a difference. She smiled. Keep telling yourself that. His thumb resumed its slow circles. The evening light slanted through the windows, casting long shadows across the floor. I don't want you to go, he said quietly. I know. But I'm not going to ask you to stay. I know that too. He was quiet for a long moment. This is what it feels like, he said finally. Choosing. Not needing. Just wanting someone so badly it hurts, and letting them go anyway because staying would cost them something they can't afford to give. Ellie's throat tightened. Is it worth it? She asked. The hurt? Yes. He met her eyes. Because the wanting is better than the numbness. Because missing you means I have someone worth missing. Because every time you leave, I get to watch you come back. Her eyes burned. And you always come back, he said. That's what I couldn't believe at first. That someone would choose to leave and then choose to return. That departure wasn't the same as abandonment. It never was, she whispered. I know that now. He squeezed her ankle. You taught me. She flew back to Cambridge on Sunday. He drove her to the airport. Walked her to security. Held her hand until the last possible second, his grip firm and steady. Tuesday, he said. Thursday. She smiled. Every day in between. He kissed her forehead. Every day in between. She walked through security without looking back. Not because she didn't want to, because if she looked back, she wasn't sure she'd be able to keep walking forward. Her phone buzzed as she was boarding. Made it through? Barely, she typed. Almost turned around 3 times. Why didn't you? She considered the question. Because staying would have been for you. Leaving is for us. His response came immediately. I love you. I love you too. Tuesday. She smiled at the screen. Sunday. But close enough. The teaching program consumed her. 12-hour days. Lesson planning, classroom observations, cohort meetings that ran late into the evening. She was exhausted in ways she'd never been before, not the bone-deep fatigue of working 2 jobs while attending class, but something closer to fulfillment. She was tired because she was giving everything she had to something that mattered. Liam visited in April, then June, then August, when she moved from her cramped apartment to a slightly less cramped one with actual windows and a landlord who fixed the leaky faucet. Progress, he said, surveying her new kitchen. Progress, she agreed. Still no pancake station. I'll bring my own pan next time. You have 5 pans at home. None of them are the right pan. She laughed. He smiled. They spent the weekend assembling IKEA furniture and arguing about shelf placement and ordering takeout from the Thai place around the corner. This is nice, he said Saturday night, sprawled on her second-hand couch. Normal. Domestic. Don't get used to it. I'm a chaos gremlin. You're the most organized person I've ever met. That's just my coping mechanisms. Deep down, I'm chaos. He turned his head to look at her. Deep down, you're the least chaotic person I know. You just don't give yourself credit for holding it together. Ellie was quiet for a moment. My mom used to say that survival is just organized panic, she said. She was very organized. Her panic, not her life. Liam's expression softened. She sounds like she was remarkable. She was. Ellie paused. She also made terrible pancakes. Worse than mine. Much worse. She used box mix and didn't measure the water. He grinned. I'm not competing against a dead woman's pancake legacy. Smart man. They lay in comfortable silence, the city humming outside her window. His hand found hers on the cushion between them. I'm glad you're here, she said. Me too. He squeezed her fingers. 3,000 miles is too far. You're the one who won't relocate. I'm the one whose company is headquartered in California. He paused. Give me time. I'm working on it. She turned her head to look at him. Working on what? His expression shifted, not secretive, just careful. Something. I'll tell you when it's ready. He told her in October. Not in person, over video call, his face carefully composed, his hands gripping the edge of his desk. I'm stepping down as CEO. Ellie stared at the screen. What? Not immediately. There's a transition period. 6 months, maybe 8. My father is coming out of retirement to oversee the handoff. He paused. I'm moving to the advisory board. Remote work. Flexible hours. Liam, I've been thinking about it since you left. What I actually want. Not what I inherited, not what was expected of me. His voice was steady. I don't want to spend my life managing a company I never asked to run. I want to wake up next to someone I love. I want to cook terrible pancakes in a kitchen that actually feels like mine. I want to be present for my life instead of just surviving it. Ellie couldn't breathe. I'm not doing this for you, he continued. I'm doing it for me. But I'm also doing it because I want to be near you. Because 3,000 miles is too far, and I'm tired of counting days until your next visit. She pressed her palm against her chest. When? She whispered. January. February at the latest. He paused. If that's okay. If you want me there. I know your program is intense and your apartment is small, and we've never actually lived together, and Liam. He stopped. Yes, she said. Yes, I want you here. Yes, my apartment is small and my program is intense, and we've never done this before. Her voice cracked. Yes. 1,000 times yes. His face crumpled. Relief, joy, disbelief, all of it, raw and unguarded. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. Then I'm coming home. He arrived in February. Not to visit. To stay. Ellie watched him walk through her apartment door with 2 suitcases and a box of his mother's pancake recipes and felt her entire world shift on its axis. This is insane, she said. You're insane. I'm insane, he agreed. I flew 3,000 miles to live in a 400-square-foot apartment with a woman who still hasn't figured out her coffee order. I know my coffee order. You change it every week. Because different days require different caffeine delivery systems. He set down his bags, crossed the room, pulled her into his arms. I missed you, he said against her hair. Even when you were here, I missed you. She held him tighter. You don't have to miss me anymore. I know. His voice was thick. That's the best part. Living together was harder than either of them expected. Not because they didn't get along, they did, effortlessly, instinctively. Not because the space was too small, 400 square feet forced proximity, but they'd spent the past year and a half learning to share space. It was hard because they were both still healing. Liam had nightmares. Not every night, not as frequent as before, but often enough. He'd wake gasping, reaching for a brother who wasn't there, and Ellie would pull him back to the present with quiet words and steady hands. Ellie had panic attacks. Not about her mother anymore. That grief had settled into something she could carry. About money. About scarcity. About the terror of finally having enough and waiting for it to be taken away. Liam would sit with her on the bathroom floor, counting breaths, reminding her that she wasn't that girl anymore. This is what it looks like, he said one night, both of them sprawled on her too small couch, exhausted from the weight of their own histories. Healing. It's not linear. It's not pretty. It's just showing up. Every day. Doing the work. Ellie rested her head on his shoulder. It looks like this, she agreed. 2 people who refuse to give up on themselves. Or each other. His hand found hers. Tuesday, he said. Thursday. Every day in between. She closed her eyes. Every day in between. Spring became summer. Summer became fall. Ellie finished her teaching program and accepted a position at a Cambridge public school. Liam established his remote advisory role and discovered, to his surprise, that he actually enjoyed the work when it wasn't consuming his entire existence. They found a bigger apartment. 2 bedrooms, actual counter space, a window that faced the sunrise. They adopted Tuesday the cat, grumpy, gray, and deeply ungrateful. It's a good life, Ellie said one evening, watching Liam burn pancakes at their new stove. It's a normal life, he corrected. Is that okay? After everything you've been through. He slid a mangled pancake onto her plate. Normal is the best thing I've ever had. She smiled. Picked up her fork. These are still terrible. I know. I'm working on it. 7 years and you still can't flip a pancake. Some things take time. He paused. Some things are worth the effort. She looked at him. At his steady gaze, his patient smile. At the man who'd been a stranger, then an employer, then a burden, then a friend. At the man who was now her partner, her equal, her home. "I love you," she said. "I love you too." He reached across the counter and took her hand. "Tuesday. It's Wednesday." "I know." His thumb traced across her knuckles. "I just like saying it." She squeezed his fingers. "Every day in between," she said. "Every day in between."